Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Today on the show, we have the Seatbelt Psychic, Thomas John. Now, I call him that because that is the name of his brand new television show, which is on the Lifetime Network, and it's just brilliant. Thomas is warm, caring, down-to-earth, generous, and extremely accurate with his medium readings. Thomas is a graduate of the University of Chicago, where he earned a degree in psychology and human development with departmental honors. He also pursued research internships at Yale University and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, where he was a lead research assistant on studies related to psychopathology and personality. During these internships, Thomas was the author of 3 peer-reviewed publications. He was accepted into graduate school programs in medical research, but became an intuitive instead. And we'll hear about his journey on the show today. Thomas is the author of his first novel, which is titled Never Argue with a Dead Person: True and Unbelievable Stories from the Other Side. Thomas John is viewed as one of the world's top psychics and is in extremely high demand globally these days. So I'm so grateful that he can spend some time with us today on our show. His website is mediumthomas.com. Thomas John, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Oh, thank you very, very much for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I first heard your name, a couple years ago, I suppose. And I thought, who is this guy? And then I stalked you on the internet with everything I could find on YouTube. And lo and behold, here we are today. So I'm very happy. No, I am. You are a giver. You're down to earth. I love the TV show. And I think you're just a special, great human being.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I've actually listened to several episodes in the past, and stuff, so I'm very familiar with your audience and your interviews and your book.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. Well, let's talk about you, though. How does your story begin? I'm always curious if you were somebody who grew up with the gift, or just, if you would just tell us a little bit about you growing up and then going to college and then what happened to now make you an intuitive.
Yeah, I was, I grew up in Plainville, Massachusetts, which is just a small town. If you basically are driving from Boston to Providence, right before you get to Rhode Island, you'll go through a small town called Plainville. And I was the firstborn and had 2 younger sisters. We're all 4 years apart. My mom said that was designed so they only had to pay for one college at a time. Mm-hmm. And, I, all my earliest childhood memories include, seeing of the spirit world. And so I really have, I know different people tap into their abilities in different ways. And I'm a believer that we all are actually mediums and psychics, just like we're all artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, creators. We just have to tap into that. So, but all of my, when I was young, I had these abilities and they were just part of my world. I never had any thoughts as a young boy, like, oh, I wonder if other people have this or anything. Mm-hmm. And really my primary thing was basically, my grandfather visited me, who was my father's father, and I never had met him, but I felt very connected to him in the spirit world. And we had many communications and conversations, which I shared with my parents. And at first, my parents were sort of like, oh, that's, okay. And as it really became, the way my mom describes it is, as it became more real and more vivid and more clear that, okay, this is not just something that he's making up in his head. It was very scary for them and stuff. So that was kind of my initial, experience as being a young boy. And yes, I do feel I was, quote unquote, born this way for sure. I think that I was just born with that part of my, my brain, my soul just open. So that's basically how it started for me at the beginning.
Wow. And then did you nurture that growing up, or did you just kind of put it to one side and, life as a young person takes over?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really something that could be nurtured because my father was a violent, basically psychotic person. And so anything that deviated from his world, even down to like if you, smiled and he didn't want you to smile, if you, wanted to get a piece of food and he didn't want you to eat at that moment, he would just viciously beat us. And that's basically what happened. I'm very open about my situation with my parents. And I actually, am a survivor of what was later documented by the police department and by the district attorney as one of the worst child abuse cases in Massachusetts in their whole history. And so when we left my father when I was 13 years old, my mother finally, got the courage after many years of dealing with this. And my sister at that time was 8. My other sister was 4. 13, I'm trying to think, actually, it might have been, hold on, now I'm thinking, actually, I was 15, so we were a little bit older than that. We left in 1999, so I was 15. So, no, there was no way to develop anything growing up. I mean, my father was so controlling about everything, down to, when you can get up, when you can move, when you can talk, when you can go to the bathroom. So, I mean, definitely, it wasn't like, oh, by the way, I talk to dead people, and oh, cool, it was like, that. And then my mother was just so fear-based from everything that it was a lot of we have to go to the doctors, we have to go to the priest, we have to go to the rabbi, we have to go to the therapist. There's something wrong with you. You've got to stop this. And then on top of that, going to school, and talking about it there. And, I'm actually friends with some of my 4th and 5th and 6th grade teachers now, and they're like, well, we didn't know, I've shared with them now. I mean, they had no idea when I was growing up. They just were like, we didn't know what you were, I don't know, you just were a weird kid, we were, nobody talked about psychics and stuff in my town, or it just was so different.
Right.
So, no, I just, and then finally when my parents got divorced, in the 9th grade, I was able to take a little bit of a deep breath and just kind of be like, whew, my father was, we actually had to put him in prison because the police became aware of what was going on. And so they basically charged him with child abuse and they documented it, and they had to put him behind bars. And that's kind of when my life actually started in terms of any sort of normal existence. Like I could have a friend, like I could, have a candy bar. I could, go to the movies, So I kind of got a little bit more relaxed to it. And then, basically, I graduated from high school, and I just had this strong inclination to just get away from where I was living. I didn't want to go, my mom was like, oh, you should go to, Boston University. I can visit you every weekend. I was like, oh,
I want to get out.
I wanted to, yeah. I just wanted to get on the first plane out of there. So I applied to a bunch of schools. I applied to the University of Chicago. And I just had a deep knowingness. I had no idea why I applied there. I'd never even been to Chicago, but I did apply there. My guidance counselor told me, you'll never get in there. We've never had anybody accepted there. You really shouldn't even waste the $50 to apply. But I applied. I got accepted with a scholarship. And I went to the University of Chicago, which is a really wonderful school that I'm so blessed to have gone to. But it's also basically just a breeding pot for atheism. Nobody is religious or really spiritual there. So that was another sort of journey. Again, you can just visualize, I'm not thinking, I'm having experiences still. Sure. I'm still, spirits are visiting me. My other grandfather has passed by this time. He starts visiting me. But again, no real language or anything like that. And to be honest with you, the turning point for me was really, just as I became more aware of myself and, with my own just beliefs and how I see the world, and, you go to college and, your sexuality, and you just kind of get in touch with yourself. And I started to realize, like, wow, I do, I am, this is what I have. And a real turning point was actually, I believe it was when I was in either high school or college. I'd have to look back at the year. It might have been right on the cusp, but, John Edward came out with his show, and that was a big deal. And my mom was kind of like, what do you think about that? What's your thought? And we kind of joke about it, but I said, yeah, Mom, that's kind of what I've been trying to tell you for the last 20 years, that you've been taking me to doctors. So
right.
That was when I kind of really could be more open about it. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And then you chose to go into college. And I mean, I'm just thinking with psychology and human development and, psychopathology and personality. I can't help but think that comes from childhood, stuff we deal with makes you try to figure things out, right?
Oh, totally. I had a deep desire to understand things, but my mother says that when I was very young, I always wanted to play doctor. I always had an inclination. I would tell people I wanted to heal the world. This is like 5 and 6 years old. My mom said I would go to Christmas parties and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say, I want to heal the world.
Oh.
And, my mom, we even have Christmas videos of me, I'm talking about, Jesus. And, so, I think it's clear that I must have, I don't know really how it all works, but I think I came here with certain imprints for sure. And, and so I was definitely on that path. Did go to the University of Chicago, did really well. I was on this total sort of protege program to go into clinical psychology research, and did very well, published a couple of research papers. But, I kind of jokingly say, and, it's kind of a joke, but it's also serious, that, the people in the spirit world, they're kind of like the mafia. Mm-hmm. And it's like once they recruit you, they decide that you're going to do this work. It's like any other path you try to go down, they just block it. And I tell that to my students all the time, because I have so many people that come up to me and say, how do you know if you're supposed to be a professional medium? And I'm like, easiest question in the world. You will have no other choice than to be pursued down that path. I'm a perfect example. I ran as far away from becoming a medium as I could. I didn't go and take classes about things. I did all sorts of just, going in the other direction. I went, the psychology department stuff. Then after I left that even, because I stopped doing that for a while, and it's like I was working in bars. I was, traveling around. I was a drag queen for a year. It's like,
how fun.
It's clear that I was not like, yay, spirit world.
Right.
I was like, get it away. So they just continued to reinforce, though. And every time I felt like I did something that was more in the direction of trying to push it away or shut it down or ignore it or pretend like it wasn't real, it would intensify, So I really think if you have of course we're all mediums and psychics and something like that. If you have the true professional calling to do this work, then you will not be able to escape it. It just will. You cannot. It will not happen. So,
Thomas, I remember I was at the point where I gained enough information about the afterlife that it's like I had to do something with it. I just felt like this moral responsibility. But I'm like, I don't want this responsibility. I don't want it because people are going to think I'm insane. Right. And so I can't remember the title of the movie, but it was a new comedy that came out. And they said, oh, it's a comedy. So I'm like, I'm going to take myself to this comedy. Well, yeah, it's sort of a comedy. There were some funny lines, but it was about this young man who gets cancer and all these people are dying and everybody's experiencing grief. And I'm like, to me, it was the spirit world saying, you're going to experience now what people are experiencing and you are that messenger and you're going to get out there and you're going to tell your story. So I couldn't escape it. Couldn't. So that was the turning point that I finally opened my mouth after watching that damn movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man. So did you learn about mediumship? Did you like, okay, I got this. How do I nurture it? I mean, how do I develop it? Or did you just go for it and start
Well,
seeing what works, what doesn't?
once I realized that this is the path I really wanted to be on, I did, once I went on that path, that was really when, that was, once I went on that path, that was really the way. There was no going back. It just, the doors kept opening and stuff like that. At first, I started to develop it, I think, really more out of curiosity,
right,
and more out of like, you know what, I'm gonna pursue this a little bit. I'm going to do this a little bit. But I'm going to be honest with you. It became very clear to me right away that I was going to have to do this full time. I just knew within a month of doing, a couple professional readings, and because I finally got to the point where, I experimented enough, and I was like, you know what, I'm getting good information. I can do a reading for somebody, and I feel confident that my information is good enough that I can, if somebody says I want a reading, I can do it. I'm not having issues of like doubting myself, or I can't read certain people. It's like, I can do this. So as I started to do it, I started to say, okay, well, I had to literally, I was living in New York at the time when I finally started to kind of go out with it a little bit. And I had to charge for the readings because I would have to take time out of my job that I was working, to do a reading. So I couldn't afford not to. So, and it just became clear within maybe the first month. I said, I looked at my book, and it was just every day there was appointments. Every day there was 15 more phone calls. So like I said, again, I think it's like the spirit world. They start sending me people. They start, they become involved in that. And that's really what happened.
Man. Well, I'm just so proud that you went for it. And I watched, you work a lot with the Helping Parents Heal organization. And I am so fond of those people. They're just great. And I remember they set you up in a Zoom meeting room, and you didn't know who you would have to read. And that was the first time I actually saw you for an hour doing a reading on a woman that you've never laid eyes on before. And to the degree of how specific you were bringing through her daughter, I just remember being flooded with goosebumps going, this is something special here. And I don't know who this man is. I don't know, but I'm going to support him and share him and love him and, get the word out, because in that single, I think I watched it live. I really got that not everybody is going to have the opportunity to see you face to face or even on the phone, but that was a gift that can help just so many people believe that their loved ones are there. So
yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, and I think that as mediums, we, as a medium, myself, I think that it's important, to continue to push that envelope of communication and the testing and the empirical side of things. I do think that is very important. Yeah. I was reading, back from my psychology days, I was reading a book the other day about the history of psychoanalysis, the Freudian lay on the couch 4 times a week. And and I've always had a passion and an interest in that type of psychotherapy. And I find it really fascinating, all the different things and the history of that sort of modality and stuff. And, one of the reasons why that type of therapy is not so prolific now is because there was a big time in the 80s and the 70s and stuff where the psychoanalysts were like, well, we're the best there is. We don't care about, people popping pills and stuff. That's never going to be more, in vogue than having an analyst, So, and they kind of refuse to, prove their theories and test themselves and things like that. And I think it was, and it's, they talk about how in the movement that was very much to their demise. And I think that as far as mediumship goes, that those types of things are important. I mean, sometimes it's annoying because you think, I'm like, especially myself, I'm like, okay, I've been tested a million times. I've been doing this for 10 years and people are still, want to test you and stuff. But I do think it's important for the work, that is done. And I also think it's important for the work that people who go out and say that they're mediums, do things and act and behave in the way that is, because it is a privilege and an honor and
Yes.
stuff, and it's important how you carry yourself because all that stuff becomes connected with us,
Mm-hmm. And it is so important to keep pushing the envelope there. I mean, there's been people that want to be on my show and, I'll give you a free medium reading. And, who's going to say no to that? And one guy,
Right.
he must have given me 1,000, that's a word, like 100 bits of information, all incorrect. And then there was one piece that was like right on, but he's charging a lot of money. He's like, I'm thinking, and I don't want to badmouth him, but I do think you just can't hang up the shingle saying you're a medium. You got to keep practicing. You got to find out what works. And it just seems like you continuously go for it and try to refine it. And out of anyone I've ever seen, you have more accuracy and not generalities. And it's like, whatever work that you've done, I just really commend you for doing that. And
thank you.
Because
I mean, I think for me, and I talk about this a lot, I think that it is, about the sort of, the personal development of things. And I have seen mediums lately, talk about that the personal development that, because I have that happen a lot where somebody comes, to me and they say, can you mentor me? I say, my first question is always, well, what work have you done on yourself? Because I think that's because it becomes, as a medium, we utilize every part of our physical body, our soul body, our energy. It becomes a projection screen for which the work is done in a way when you think about it, right? As a medium, the information really is coming through you. So if you have tons of, crap, that's all in your energy and in your mind and stuff, you are going to include that somehow in your readings. And sometimes it can be helpful if you have personal reference points, but you have to be aware of how much you are, you really have to kind of work on that. That internal work is so important, and it's not always easy to, what I'm saying? Like you have to, but it isn't very important. If you feel like you have a calling as a medium, for sure.
I'm not sure where to go next, except for I'm thinking of the TV show because I just binged watched all of them. How did that come about? And just give it, because some people don't know what it is, the Seatbelt Psychic, but talk a little bit about the premise for it, because here we are again, like, not everybody's going to get to you personally. Not everyone's going to see one of your videos, but everybody can watch TV. And I tell you, those episodes are transformational. Even though I'm not the person in that car, to see the level of information that comes through, and you transform the people that are with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really came out of when I was doing that, when I did that work. Basically what happened was this. I happened to meet some people who were affiliated with James Corden, and they kind of came up with this idea, and they said, we're looking for some ideas for other shows. Obviously, you understand the connection of doing other shows in cars because of the carpool, karaoke show, which has been successful. And we would love it if we could somehow, you could do readings in a car. And I just cracked up laughing. I said, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
It is.
And I said, there's absolutely no way I'm doing that. There's just no way. And they were like, well, why? I mean, this is an opportunity for a TV show. Now, leading up to this, I had been approached by every production company, every TV network, every this, I should write a book like the craziest ideas for psychics and TV shows. And they're all things I turned down. I was like, I'm not doing, things that do not honor the work. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not doing things that are not with integrity. I'm not doing things where, it's like a magic trick. I'm just not doing that. I refuse. I don't care about being on TV that enough. And really, I still don't, even though I have the show. So they said, well, why don't you just give it a try? And so, only because it was my really good friend, I said, sure, I can try to do it, but I just think the premise is kind of dumb. And we started to do it, and I started to realize after I started doing it that, there's a lot of good potential here, because I realized that the main thing being that, the number one question I get about psychic medium shows is, are they real or not?
Right.
And people ask me that about every show. And I thought, what better way to really showcase the work than, and my answer to that is always, I have no idea, because I have nothing to do with any other show except mine. But I know on my show, because of the format of picking people up, this is really my first meeting with them. There's no producers involved asking questions before. So that really was interesting to me. And I also realized that, this is, a lot of shows that you may see, and it's not anything bad, but a lot of shows that you might see with psychics, the people that are coming are very much already believers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just to be like, totally true. Like with John's show, when he had that, Crossing Over show, which was a great show, but everybody there was there to see him, and they all probably believe, right? Mm-hmm. So this was a way for me to deal with a whole bunch of people that don't have any, that who knows if they believe or not. And that's really what the reality of the world is, that, like you said, I mean, there's people, I'm traveling around today, and, last night I stopped in through Flint, Michigan, and I was driving on the way to Grand Rapids, and I started talking with this woman at a gas station, and I told her about what I do. She was like, I have no idea what that, I never even heard of that. Like, how do you talk to dead people? And
really?
I said, well, I'm a medium. You never heard? Yeah. She had never heard of a medium. She said, I never even heard of that. I didn't even know. She said, the thought that somebody could talk to my loved ones and they're a medium, I've never even heard of that. And so, there are people that have never heard of it, don't believe in it, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I thought. That's kind of why I thought that the show was positive.
Oh, it sure is, because you get people in, and you're, ride share driver, and I just think it's so funny. It reminds me of Cash Cab, that people would get in the cab, and then it's a game show, well, they get in your automobile, and do you believe in mediums? Do you believe in psychics? And some do, some don't. And, are you open? And then if, they're willing, you'll tell them who's with them. And I just remember the guy who, I think he was a minister, and he wasn't interested. He did, no, I don't really believe in that. And then his wife came through with such specifics. Mm-hmm. And, when that man started to cry, I started to cry. And it's, it's transformational right there in that moment. There's no way that guy could have been putting that on or be an actor or anything. And those, I tell you, sometimes when you get the goosebumps, it's like, it's truth resonating. It's like, that's the real deal, And so
yeah,
I love it. And is it just the 8 episodes right now? Are there more to come?
Yeah, we're actually in talks about some exciting things. And, so for now it's just the 8, but we have a big, to be continued there, and trying to figure out a couple different things. So it's actually really exciting right now. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't see how it wouldn't go on, because it is awesome. And for our listener, it's on the Lifetime network. And if you're the on-demand person, or, watch things on your phone or iPad, you can pull it up. It's really, really good. It's great. And I'm like, I know
Thank
him.
you
I
so
know
much.
him. He's my friend. I haven't talked to him yet, but he's my friend. What do you think now? Because, well, first I want to ask you, from viewing the show, it seems like you're seeing the loved ones or seeing the spirit world and they're talking to you and like almost as normal as you see regular people. I mean, how is your experience of witnessing these folks in the afterlife? Does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just depends on how they also want to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is very real to me. I mean, I've literally had situations where I'm like, I mean, I'm not exaggerating where I say, oh my God, is that person dead or alive that's sitting
Wow.
there? So I will see them that clearly. But a lot of times it's also through my thoughts. It is through my thoughts, and that is the way the spirit will communicate through my soul too, just through my my physical body and just through my energy. So it just depends. It's really, I haven't really carved out what the rules are, like why somebody comes through very vividly. It's just like certain spirits come through and they talk a lot. Some spirits are kind of more like, they're kind of quiet, so it just depends. It's just a process. But I feel 24/7 very connected to, loved ones. And the moral, I think one of the big take-home messages for the show is that no matter what, our loved ones are with us. They are hanging out with us, and they, they're around. They're a part of. They're with us. So,
Wow. Do you have any concepts or ideas of what their life is like in the afterlife? Do you think it's very much like ours? Do you think they're busy with us, or are they kind of leading their own lives, but they can drop in on us? Because sometimes you think, are they always with us? Are they just there when they need us? Do you have any of your own thoughts on that or the bigger picture of life?
I think that their lives over there are as individual as our lives here, and I think, that they are on their own journey over there that is driven more, the way I see it is it's more driven by the spiritual and less by the emotional. Whereas here we're very driven by the emotional and really not driven at all by the spiritual. And so, we are driven by the spiritual, but, you figure the average person, let's just say, unless, it's more of a conscious choice here. We're on the other side. It's more, you go to the other side, you're very driven by the spiritual, if that makes any sense. And so I think that, people ask, like, do they have emotions over there? It's like they do have emotional reactions to things, but it's just not the same as having emotions that we might have here. It's just, it's different. It's not their primary way of connecting and communicating. So that's pretty much what I would say to that. They can connect with us in many ways, and they can interact with us, and they can talk to us. And I wouldn't say it's like they're not around, but they're available to us and accessible to us. But their job is to also, allow us to have our own life in the physical world. And so their job is to not be 24/7 all over us, but they can interact with us and be a part of us. Sure.
I love that. I think I just interviewed a lady who said, we're all looking for signs. She says, how about we start giving them signs, talking to them like they're really with us and pouring a second cup of coffee or, having conversations. And I think all of that can lift us out of the grief we may be feeling and, kind of be a little proactive on it instead of just sitting here like, give me a sign.
Right. So. Yeah, I think the more that we can, try to directly communicate with them and not be so, like, let's say, demanding on them, the more that opens up a certain, path for sure.
Now, do you think energy has something to play? Like when you said, what work have you done on yourself? I thought that was like a great question because so many times people say, we got to raise our vibration, feel better for them to communicate. And, may or may not be true, but like when you do work on ourselves, I do think there's more integrity to us, that we're more whole and complete. Um, and what are your thoughts of just, kind of being more complete ourselves or doing things that make us feel better to instead of being in the doldrums of grief, which you can't help it if you have lost a loved one. But do you think it makes a difference for our loved ones to come through or have signs if we're feeling better, if we have more integrity, that world?
Yes. I mean, I think that it is, there's a certain vibration with which the spirit world is at, and there's a certain vibration with which the physical world is at. And I think the more that we can really try to raise our vibration here, the closer we can be to having, daily communication with the spirit world and just kind of be more on their vibration. A lot of times I talk to people about this in the context of grief. And I tell people that, just because somebody, the spirit world, they understand about grief, and they, and of course, they want to visit you and connect with you. But when you are really struggling with grief, there is a blocking that happens with your energy, and it is harder for people in the spirit world to communicate because it just is, because there's more for them. There's a thicker wall for them to penetrate. So what I tell people is it, if people say, well, when I have bad grief, that's when I need my loved ones. And certainly they understand that, but it is a metaphysical truth that when, you have more grief, more negativity, I know that, for example, when I, on the flip side of things, I know when I was, in my early 20s and, like I said, running away from my gift and doing all sorts of crazy things, it did kind of block them out a little bit. And it was harder for me to communicate, and I didn't feel as connected to my loved ones and things like that. So I do think there is a vibrational, there's a vibrational sort of temperature to all of us, a vibrational level that we're all at. And, people in the spirit world are on a higher vibration, and they have to, kind of lower their vibration a little bit to connect with our vibration. We have to raise our vibration a little bit to connect with their vibration. So that is something important that we want to be mindful of.
You think they have to learn how to do this, and from the spirit world side?
Yes, they, in terms of how to communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do to an extent. Yeah, I've actually had that happen at many of my events when I do my large events. And what I noticed when I was doing my large events is I would see thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of souls at my large events. Or I would do a private reading for someone, and I would have 2 or 3 contacts, but behind them I would see 200 or 300 souls.
Wow.
And so one time I asked my spirit guide, I said, why are all these other souls here? They never come through. They just kind of, and they said, oh, they're learning how to do this. They're new souls that just came, and they're learning how to do this. So I do believe there's a little bit, some are better communicators than others. Some it does seem to have a more natural inclination to communicate. So it really, I would say it just really, really, really depends. But, yes, you have to learn a little bit to a certain extent.
I don't know why I'm thinking this, but do you buy into the notion of reincarnation? And I'm not saying I do or I don't, but I'm just curious.
Yes, I do believe that a soul reincarnates. I mean, I believe that energy, can't die. So, yes, I do believe that, I do believe in reincarnation. I don't believe it's an automatic process. I don't believe that you die and immediately reincarnate. I think that would be sort of that I don't really believe that, but I believe that one choice and one path that a soul can have is, yes, to decide, that they want to reincarnate. Sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And this has been a big debate with people that I know recently. But, the big question is, I've gotten from some of my listeners, if there is reincarnation, how can I go to a medium if that person, my child's already reincarnated? And I'm thinking, well, I don't think it happens that fast. Or there might still be a part of the soul.
One answer. That's one answer.
Yeah.
But also, that would be one answer because it does take some time usually. And I've been told that most souls, again, there's exceptions to every rule, so I don't, somebody say, oh, well, but 50 to 100 years is normally how long a soul will take to reincarnate. So most people, if you lose somebody, they're not coming back soon. So that would be that. But and sometimes longer, sometimes less. But also, we can, let's say you want to connect with, I'm just using this as an example, but let's say you want to connect with, well, let's just say somebody who lived, 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago. And it's, you think, well, they probably have already come back. As a medium, that full record and that full existence of that lifetime from 500 years ago, even though that person is already back in another body and maybe has come and gone 3 more times since that, or whatever, or 10 more times, we can still tap into that soul. And that soul can, we know this just from our understanding of even, physics, but we, our soul and our energy is not limited and localized to one body. Our soul can be in many, many, many places at once. So it is feasible to imagine that somebody who loses their child or their, whatever, their mother, and if that soul decided to immediately reincarnate, they could still tap into that soul through a medium on the other side, and that soul would talk about their life with that person in the context with which they know about it. I mean, when you think about it also, too, our souls that have left the physical world, they have totally new jobs over there. They have totally new descriptions over there. They have totally new language and systems of thought over there. But when they come through through a medium, they talk about the life that they had here.
Right.
So, they're not going to come through and say, I'm on the other, they may talk a little bit about that, but the information they're going to bring through is going to be evidential, so that it's them. So that's one way to think about it too, is that somebody could reincarnate, a soul can, but because we're multidimensional beings, that soul could still come through a medium and be commenting on their life here, their life that they had with you. That's feasible to imagine.
I think it's hard, well, it's impossible for any of us to figure out the truth because we're using our human minds to do it when there's a universe of knowledge. So, and then for as many people as ever roamed on planet Earth, which is billions upon billions, everybody's different. So I don't think there is one answer, but I think from all these conversations personally that I've had, and possibly for you too, you find your own truth and you find that which empowers you in your life, right?
Exactly, yes. And I think that as you listen to things more and more and more, and I think it is even, I think it's even different for, certainly for, I think it's different for certain souls too.
I agree. Thomas, what are you most passionate about these days? What are you up to? What can we share that you're doing? I know you are doing a lot. So what gives you the most pleasure?
Mostly my focus right now is on my events. I do large group events where people come and they have the opportunity to receive a reading or ask a question. So that's really taking up a lot of my time right now, just planning all that. I've been very excited about, sharing that. So,
yeah. And we can find out more on your website about your events. Is that correct?
Yes, I have all of my events right on my website, mediumthomas.com.
And you still do private readings, don't you? Yeah, you're a busy man.
Yeah, it's a little bit, another format that I have that's, very much, in a way, very similar to a private reading and is a nice feeling for people, too, is I came up with a couple years ago these things called spirit circles.
Okay.
And basically they are, I call them that, and they're a group of about 8 people. Everybody does get a reading. It's 2 hours. A little bit more cost than a normal gallery reading.
Right.
But it's great because there's less of a wait. You're going to, you get to do it in person, whereas most of my readings now are phone or Skype, and it's good. People get a lot out of it, and there's the sharing and the camaraderie of other people's messages, and you get to around like-minded people. There is something that's very feels very positive about that.
I want to ask, how did you get introduced to the Helping Parents Heal organization?
How did I get introduced? Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I think it was really through, one of my assistants that helps me actually does some work with them pretty regularly. And I think it just kind of came from that. I can't remember if she started working with me before that happened or after, but I think it was just a word of mouth thing. I think maybe somebody mentioned me to them or something like that. But, I think, yes, they're a phenomenal organization, really caring people. And I've sent them so many, new members too, because every time I do a reading for somebody it's interesting because sometimes people they're like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. And, people love that they have that shared connection and stuff. So yeah, that, I haven't done I haven't only been with them for about, maybe doing some stuff for them for the last 6 months or so. But yeah, they're just phenomenal.
Yeah, and you do a lot of giving, and I thank you for that, because that organization too, if you are someone whose child has passed into the spirit world, helpingparentsheal.org, a lot of grief support, but also with the belief that the afterlife is real. So it's just a great group of people. And I tell you, I know your generosity, Thomas, and thank you for that, because it's your TV show, your gallery readings, just being out there and open and willing to help. Yes, not the whole world may not be one-on-one with you on Skype or on the phone, but your level of mediumship really is something so special to me, because I've seen a lot, that just witnessing it is like, okay, that guy's wife's there, or that child's there, my dad's around, my grandmother's around, my animals are around. So thank you, really. I know you live in your own skin, so you're just you doing what you're doing in life, but from an outsider who's really can appreciate what you're doing, and it's life-saving. I mean, it really is. There could be a person on the verge of suicide, and they see one of your episodes and go, oh my God, afterlife is real.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it can be very, hopefully eye-opening for people, and I think that's important.
Yeah, that little boy that you were wanting to save the world, like you are. You are. I was the same little girl. I thought I was going to help Jesus when I got older, and there was this big mission for me to do, and I really thought I talked to Jesus, and I may have, but it wasn't going to happen until I was much older. And to see what I'm doing now, it's like, interesting. Now, as far as people, I do also believe that we all have mediumship within us. We're all souls having a human experience, and we're all musicians, we're all artists, but it takes some learning and things to do to tap into it. Are there things, and I'm not saying everybody wants to be a medium, but are there things that we can do as individuals just to help us be open to receive messages or signs or dreams from our loved ones? Kind of tap into our own intuitive nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main thing is just, really just, opening your mind up, reflecting, pay attention to those signs, those synchronicities. Sometimes it's just so easy for us to, sometimes it's so easy for us to just dismiss things, and just to, I think that that's very important, just, listening and just, tapping in and, hearing and things like that. That's very important. So, I would say to that, it just trying to kind of like you said, living your life with integrity, living your life with positivity, and putting that out there. And the more that you do that, the more that you will have these, experiences and stuff. I find that the spirit world communicates a lot through synchronicity. So pay attention to, the doors that they open, the people that they send into your life, the quote unquote, which are really not coincidences that happen. Those are very important because a lot of times it is, it has to do with, a message being given.
I like that. Yeah, sometimes looking up at a sign at just the right time, or a license plate even, I've seen my dad's name on a license plate.
All that stuff is important.
Yeah. Wow. But just before we end, I just want to ask a little bit about the psychic versus medium. I know medium, you're tapping into deceased people, but psychic, you're tapping into energy that's still around, correct?
Yeah, well, as a psychic, I tune into somebody's soul. I tune into their energy, and I just ask spirit, and spirit communicate. So that would be that's more based on, opportunities ahead, opportunities in the past, even things about people's past. It's not always future oriented. That's kind of like a misconception that a psychic, you go and you get your fortune told.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes.
Sometimes future stuff does come through, or opportunities, but it's not. It's more looking at your energy. Where there's blocks, where things you can do better. Things like that. That's important, and that's interesting. I mean, I would say it in a way. I probably prefer being a medium, but that's only because people are so difficult with psychic stuff. And so people will be like, mediumship is more, it's right in the moment. It's like your mother died. This was her name.
Right.
Your mother died. This was your last words to her. It's either yes or no. You can't really, it's either their name or not, right? But with psychic stuff, there's such a level of interpretation. I find that people are more, they just go in a different direction with that and stuff. So, I think when I first, which is normal, I think my work has evolved. I think when I first started doing readings, it was probably even more future-oriented, more predictive. And I really don't do as much of that now. And now I really am focused much more on mediumship. Though it's interesting because a lot of times I find as I focused on that the mediumship comes through and they will bring through information that will be guiding to that person in the future. So they'll say something like, they may not say, hey, you're meeting a boyfriend in 6 months, but they will say, be more open to new people. You're too closed down. You're not putting yourself out there enough. And if you want to make new friends or, find somebody to fall in love with, you need to be more open to meeting new people. So that's kind of more of a message rather than, telling somebody, their next boyfriend's, social security number and name, which is not going to happen.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. Oh, no. Well, and I think too, just from my own studies, if I'm sitting here wanting a boyfriend in the worst way and picturing him and, playing the law of attraction with every detail. And then I see you as a psychic. I mean, you could pick up on that energy, of who I created mentally. And who knows? I think
Right.
within each one of us human beings, we're each on our own individual journey. And oh gosh, it's so easy to want the answers from somebody outside of ourselves, but we have to go on our own paths. We have to fail. And then in the failure, there's success. I mean, it's just like, that's where the juiciness is in life.
I think that's totally about it. And a lot of times, people will say that, why did I have to have that person? And I'll tell them, well, that could have been a learning experience. I mean, even certain, and I do believe that. I mean, I think about that even in my own life. I think, why did I have to have a crazy father? I mean, it seems like, why on earth would I have chosen that person? But I do know that probably for me to become compassionate the way I am and things like that, I think that probably that was who I needed to have, So.
Yeah, and you sure are a diamond from it all. I think you're great.
Oh, thanks.
I did. Well, yeah, I got crazy stuff that's happened in my past, and without it, there's no way I would be talking about the afterlife or even interested in it or having the show. And I have this just sneaky suspicion that when we all meet up in the afterlife, it'll be like, you know what? I had to be this crazy person so that you would do this, Oh, okay. I don't know, but I use that to empower me.
Yeah.
True.
I think that's true.
Well, Thomas, any closing words, or is there something like I should have asked you that I didn't, or any just final thoughts before we close out the episode?
I think this was been a fabulous. Yeah, I think this was a fabulous interview, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it. And I just, I want people to know and be aware that, they, I'd love to connect with as many people in person as possible. Mm-hmm. I do have many events coming up, and a lot of people ask me that, oh God, what if I go and I don't get a reading? Well, that does happen sometimes in a larger group, but I always find that if you go, and I'm sure you've had this if you've been to demonstrations before, but even if you don't get a message specifically, it can be so uplifting to have those connections, just to hear other people's validations and connections. I think that can be a great way to, get information and just feel more connected to spirit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And literally when I watched your episodes, I watched when the first one was being shown live of Seatbelt Psychic. But when I went back and watched them all, it's like, I just turned to the empty seat on the couch and started talking to my grandmother, And that's just by nature of that. Like, you really get it. So yes, it would be great if we each get our own personal message, and it's all possible. I like the sound of your spirit circles too, but yeah, that's transformational. It has us live a different life, not a victim to life. I think
that's true.
But be in the driver's seat of our life, that our lives are for a purpose, that we count, that we matter. And, one of my biggest, that's not really a fear these days, but like, I don't want to close my eyes on planet Earth the last time and think, oh, I should have done this. I should have said this. If we can play full out in our life and take risks and go for it, with that faith that the afterlife is real, that our life is for a reason. It's the biggest gift we can give someone, I think.
I think that's true too.
Yeah. Well, my friend, I am here to always support you and share what you're up to. And Thomas, thank you for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me, Sandra.
Oh, it was easy. And I got a big smile on my face. And for our listener, thank you for being here. As a reminder, Thomas's website is mediumthomas.com, and you can Google him and check him out. He's doing all kinds of great things. Seatbelt Psychic is the name of the TV show. There's lots of videos that he has online that I've seen. And you're just a spectacular human being. And me, as a budding medium who's taken enough mediumship courses to know that it's within me, you've really inspired me to want to explore that and have the integrity within myself. And, spirit does keep knocking at my door for it. So I'm going to have to start listening. So thank you. And also for our listener, the Afterlife Symposium is just a few weeks away, depending on when you're listening to this. It's in September 2018 in Scottsdale, Arizona. Over 50 speakers speaking about the afterlife. You can go to afterlifesymposium.org to find out more. Home base for this show is WeDon'tDieRadio.com, and I've got a free gift, several free gifts for you there, including my audio on how to survive grief and so much more. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain, and I am always delighted to be your host on We Don't Die Radio. And I do believe with all my heart that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.